And that oil has been treated with Drano window washing acid, bleached and fried before it went in the bottle. This is before you buy it. In that process, about 1% of the molecules, up to 1% of the molecules, get damaged. And in a tablespoon of an oil like that, you will have 60 quintillion damaged molecules, which is more than 1 million damaged molecules for every one of your body's 60 trillion cells.
Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. Today I'll be talking with Udo Erasmus, health and wellness pioneer, creator of the Healthy Fats movement, the best-selling author of Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill, and the author of a brilliant book to save your life, Your Body Needs an Oil Change. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about fats that kill and fats that heal and what it means for you. So welcome to the show, Udo. Are you ready to shine?
All right, I'm ready to go.
Are our oils really killing us?
The bad oils are killing us. The good oils can save us. That's why the book is called Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill. They're two completely opposite stories about fat, and you can't get fats right if you don't understand that right from the get-go.
Does fat make you fat?
No, never been true. And that was shown 1979.
Yeah.
The report on McGovern report on nutrition and health. They made a food pyramid where they put carbs on the bottom and said, this is what you should be eating most of. Put fats on top. This is what you should be eating least of. And they did that because they didn't make it clear that the fats are bad because of the damage done by processing and food preparation. They just ignored that completely. They just said fats are bad. So people started doing that, and overweight in the 20 years following 1979 went from 25 to 60% of the population. And nobody questioned the concept. So no, carbs will make you fat if you eat more than you burn. If you burn them, they're fine. But if you eat more than you burn, then your body is forced to turn them into fats, and you will wear the carbs. So I call carbs undeclared fats, because if you eat more than you burn, you're going to wear them.
They're going into immigration and they're getting their green card right for your belly.
Yeah.
And we also have a green card problem probably with high protein diets as well.
High protein diets cause other problems. The nitrogen waste that are made from them, they affect liver and can affect kidneys and can affect brain if you really do it badly. But here's the thing. The fats will actually help you lose fats. The not so good fats, like the saturated fats that everybody's using these days, they will dehydrate you. That's most of the weight loss is water loss. But the omega-3s increase your metabolic rate, increase your oxygen metabolism. They give, when you take the right kind and the right amount, they will give you 40 to 60% increase in stamina in whatever is your sport of preference. That's huge. They turn on the body's fat-burning mechanisms. So I call the omega-3s the fat-burning fire starter, because they actually do that. Yeah, they start the fire in your body. And we've had people, when we started, people were doing marathons. You couldn't drink anything on marathons other than water, but you couldn't drink sugar drinks. So what they would do is they would carb load for a couple of days before the race. And you get about a pound of carbs in your liver and your muscles as animal starch or glycogen. And then they would run 20 miles, and then all the glycogen would be used up. But then they would drag themselves the last 6 miles. And because it takes time for fat burning to be turned on genetically. And because they carb loaded, they actually turned off fat burning.
Wow.
And so we said to them, you guys are doing it wrong. Everybody was doing that. We said, you guys are doing it wrong. What you need to do is you need to carb deplete for a few days before the race, so that by the time you start the race, all your fat burning is in high gear. And you have enough fat in your body. If you weigh, if you're normal weight and 8% body fat, you could run 300 miles on that. You could run 300 miles on half of that. And so not everybody followed us because it was just too new. But the people who followed said, wow, that was awesome. I ran the race, and at the end of the race, I felt like I could have run another one.
I love it. I'm an ultra endurance athlete and an ultra endurance runner, among other things. And I train by going out for long distances. First off, I go out for long distances in the winter, shirtless in my shorts, so that I can train my body fat and brown fat to work differently. And you talk about it as getting kind of the equivalent of fur beneath the skin. So through our fat stores, and I'll go out with no food for extra long events for training purposes to teach my body to burn fat.
Right. So you're doing it by an external stress when you go out in the cold. And that makes sense because when you get cold, that raises fat burning. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a good way to do it. I've never actually heard of that, but it makes complete sense. But you can also do it from the inside with less harshness on yourself, if you like, by increasing omega-3s in your diet, provided they're not damaged and not toxic. That's basically what we did. Is we realized I got poisoned in 1980. 1981, it was established that omega-3s are essential. I was very lucky. I was already had my head buried in the journals when that was first published. And I was right at the head of it. And I said, wow, we're going to make oils with health in mind because you can't get healthy on damaged oils. That was my thought. And then omega-3s are essential. They're 5 times more sensitive to damage than the omega-6s. So they need even more care. So let's make omega-3 oils made with health in mind. Out of that came flax oil. Where flaxseed came from is because I learned in 1981 that omega-3s are also essential, that they're 5 times more sensitive than omega-6 to damage, that they're a nightmare to work with, that 99% of the population doesn't get enough for optimum health. That was known. Flax is the richest source of omega-3s that is readily available, and we decided to make flaxseed oil to get people, because I got so excited. When I heard that they're essential, we're already working, I already got my head in the idea of making oils with health in mind. And that 99% of the population doesn't get enough, I just had an orgasm. I was like, oh my God, we could help so many people if we could bring them back made with health in mind. And that was the driver. We were so excited. We took a tour in a van without air conditioning in 1988. I slept on the floor of the van between the driver and the back. And we went to 85 cities in 101 days. We talked to anybody who would listen to us. And we created a buzz about the value of flax. Mm-hmm. And within 2 years, flax was the highest selling oil in the natural foods industry, which is where we were operating. Yeah, it was like, since then I've moved away from flax because it's unbalanced. You can actually become omega-6 deficient on it. I did. And so I developed a blend of oils with omega-3s and 6s that favors omega-6s. And when we talk about 40 to 60% increase in stamina, that was done with the blend of oils that we developed. We developed flax oil in 1986 and the blend in 1994.
Why is it so important to have a balance between omega-3, I think it's ALA, and omega-6? What does that even mean?
The balance is important because both are essential. That means the definition I gave applies to both. Can't make them, got to have them, got to get them from food. Don't get enough long enough, die. If you bring them back, you reverse what comes from not getting enough. So both of them fit that definition, but they compete in the body. They use similar systems. So if you get too much of one, it can crowd out the other. And if you get too much of the other, it can crowd out the one. We are in our diet, generally speaking, we got 10 to 20 something, 50 times more omega-6 than omega-3. And so I work with a blend that is more omega-3 than omega-6 because omega-3s are the magic. They're like high energy. They're the highest energy molecule among the essential nutrients. And anything that gives you more energy, gives all your cells more energy, means your muscles work better, so you get your 40 to 60% increase in performance, but it'll make your liver cells 40 to 60% more effective in what they're doing, and your thyroid cells more effective in what they're doing. And they make hormones work better at the cell receptor level, and the list goes on and on. They're super important for brain function and brain development during pregnancy. So super important. And so, we got stories from people because the research hadn't been done. We got so many stories of the results people saw from incorporating omega-3s made with health in mind in their diet. I was like, and I'm still excited. This is like 38 years later, and I'm still excited.
How much omega-3 can we get naturally?
Well, most people get maybe a gram.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
The research says that you should get at least 2 grams, mm-hmm. but we're giving people like 20 grams, because what happens is you want to make sure that all of the body turns them into lots of different molecules, mm-hmm. hormone molecules, antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, immune enhancing, and all kinds of, there's like dozens of different molecules the body turns them into if you get enough starting material. So we want to give people optimum amount of starting material. And if you get more than you need, the body just uses it for fuel and burns it off. So it just gives you more energy. So they give you energy as well as being the background for making many, many other important molecules in the body.
You said something very interesting there. You said if you eat too much, your body simply burns it off. So we have inside of us a fat production gene. And so if I'm understanding it right, carbohydrates turn on the body's ability to concentrate fat, basically to take the excess carbs out of the system so it can be a poison, it doesn't overwhelm us. Whereas if we have too much fat, that does not turn that system on.
Well, omega-3s, that's why I call them the fat-burning fire starter. There are genes that burn fats. It's called beta oxidation, and there's like 7 genes that are involved. And they break down fats, put the pieces into the Krebs cycle, which is where your energy is made, and then turn them into energy for you. So you end up with, at the end, water, carbon dioxide, and energy. And the energy is what you live on. And the water you pee out, and the carbon dioxide you breathe out. There goes your fat, right? And because it turns on fat burning, mm-hmm. it will help you lose body fat because you will just burn it. Whereas the carbohydrates shut off the fat burning genes and turn on the fat making gene. And it's a gene that does 7 steps of turning a carbohydrate into a fat. And then the fat goes into storage. And you keep doing that if you keep overeating, because carbs are addicting, because when they get turned into fats, you get cravings because your blood sugar goes too low. Mm-hmm. Then you're going to eat too much. Then you're going to keep doing this cycle that has been measured to be 8 times more powerful than addiction to cocaine. Carb addiction, 8 times more powerful than addiction to cocaine. I think that's important to know. And the way you get off of that addiction is you go cold turkey. You take fats as your fuel, as your main fuel, with an emphasis on the essential fatty acids, and you lower your carb intake, or you get your carbs from vegetables that are non-starchy. But you lower your carbs because if you're going to raise your fats, then you need to lower your carbs.
I'm nodding my head vigorously. I'm risking whiplash here because the way that I cured a pre-diabetic condition that I had for decades, and I had my blood sugar up, my blood sugar down, crash, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was going, I didn't know anything about keto. All I knew is I was getting the carbs out, nothing on the glycemic index, I think above 50, and was going, I was living on Maui, and it was avocado, mac nut, and just a very high fat diet, and the body settled down.
When people eat too many fats, they can become insulin resistant. So that takes you toward diabetes. And their platelets can become more sticky. But when you eat omega-3s, they make you more insulin sensitive, and they make your platelets less sticky. So when diabetics used to be told not to eat omega-3s because they can then overdose on insulin. Well, no, you want to get the omega-3s that make you more insulin sensitive, because then you can cut down your dose and maybe discontinue it altogether. And that works perfectly for everybody except the guys who make the insulin and sell it.
What happened to you in 1980 and then because of it became your mission?
I got poisoned by pesticides. And that came because my marriage broke up and I wanted to kill something. I was very upset. I was really upset. I was stupidly upset because I knew better. I was around when Greenpeace started, and I used to hang out with those guys. So I knew about pesticides and the environment. But I was upset, and so like that didn't figure into it. So I took a job as a pesticider, did it for 3 years really carelessly, walked on the lawns I sprayed till the skin peeled off my feet. So then I wore rubber boots, and people would say, and I always in a bathing suit because I'm a white guy, so I always want to be darker, right? That's what happens when you're discontent. Whatever you got is you want something else, right? Yeah. And so it was a summer job, and I was vain, and I liked to get my summer tan, and the wind would drift a spray on my back. I was really, and somebody said, aren't you worried that you're going to get poisoned? Nah, I'm immune. That's called testosterone poisoning. Men have that until they have their first serious crisis, some people say. And so then I got poisoned by pesticides. And I was 38 years old. If I walked around a block, I had to rest. I get nausea, cramps, dizziness. If I turned my head, it felt like my head turned, but my brain didn't. Of course, that's not possible, but that's what it felt like. But the biggest thing was just complete lack of energy. And I've always had lots of energy. And then I just, then I went to the doctor and said, what do you have for pesticide poisoning? She said, nothing. And that was when the penny dropped for me. Oh, my health is actually my responsibility. And that's just not a cute saying. That's just like, yeah, it really is. If I don't care about my health, maybe nobody does. And so then I took my background in biochemistry and genetics, started looking in the journals, got stuck on fats because they are the most damaged of our nutrients, the most sensitive and the most damaged, and therefore the nutrients that cause the most problems. And more health problems come from damaged oils than any other part of nutrition. And more benefits will come from getting oils made with health in mind than any other part of nutrition.
Something you said just really struck me. You said it's the most damaged of our nutrients. We have been taught in Western society that there is no nutritional value to fat. So it's interesting hearing it called nutrients.
Yeah, nutrients. Well, they're not only nutrients, they're essential nutrients. And essential nutrients are omega-3 and omega-6. Mm-hmm. And that's the only two molecules from fats that you need. And you need them, and they're called essential because you can't make them from anything else in your body. Yeah. You have to have them to live and be healthy, and you got to get them from outside. That's the first part. Second part is if you don't get enough, you can't stay healthy. Your health will deteriorate. Mm-hmm. You will get deficiency symptoms that are degenerative in nature. They will get worse with time. And if you don't get enough of an essential nutrient long enough, you get faxed upstairs. You die. You die. It's like, so these are really important. Yeah. And then the third part that is the really cool part is that if you're going down because you've been doing it wrong for so long, but before you die, because death by definition is not reversible. Yeah. If before you die, you bring enough of them back into your diet, all of the problems that come from not getting enough are reversed. Because life knows exactly what to do with these essential building blocks, provided we make sure, responsibility right here, to make sure enough of them land in our body so life can do its job.
What are some simple, easy ways to get omega-3s and omega-6s, but we may already get enough omega-6s to get the omega-3s in?
Yeah, 6s are easy because pretty much every seed oil, every plant-based oil that you find in the supermarket, all your salad, cooking, and culinary oils, they all have omega-6s in them. Most of them have virtually no omega-3s. So omega-3s are harder to get. They're northern and southern. Mm-hmm. So they're in the closer to the poles. Because they're warming oils, animals like to have them in their body. I mean, they don't like to. They have them in their body because it makes them be able to be active. Even the fish, the northern fish, they're in this really cold water and they still have to flip around, right? Well, how do you do that? Well, you got to have something that increases your energy. And omega-3s are therefore like polar, more common in the polar regions than in the tropics. In tropics, you want cooling oils, and the coconut is a cooling oil. And that makes sense. So they're harder to get. There are fewer sources. The single most widely known, available, and affordable is flax seed. But there's also chia seed that has omega-3s in it, and canola oil or rapeseed oil has a little bit of omega-3. Soybeans have a little bit of omega-3. Walnuts have a little bit of omega-3s. And then the omega-3 derivatives, you find those in the cold water fish, although the ocean is now so polluted that fish is the dirtiest meat on the planet. And then there's more omega-3 than omega-6 in grass, but the amount of fat is very low in grass. But horses are omega-3 animals because they get omega-3 from the grass they eat. And when they're in captivity, we only give them corn oil, so they don't get omega-3s. We have taken racehorses that should be doing really well by pedigree, but weren't performing well, and put them on omega-3 rich oils and had them unbelievably better in the races they started running after they started getting omega-3s. In fact, I had a woman who worked in that field, and she said her experience was that every 70% of the horses, when they put them on omega-3s, came either first, second, or third in the next race they ran after starting.
So I am a former racehorse, and I'm going to take you up. I'm going to call it my omega-3 challenge.
Yeah.
And I still run mountains almost daily. When I say mountains, 2,000 to 4,000 feet up. They could go up to 14,000 here, but that I did mountaineering gear. And so I'm going to start onto the omega-3s, and I want to see where I'm going to get. Now, you just answered. I want to dive into some dangerous oils here, and we're going to double back to omega-3s. Yeah. But you just answered a big digestive question that I have, which is, and I never even realized it was a question. I knew that if I had coconut oil or coconut milk, I got what I call a Buddha belly, and things stopped up. And I just assumed, well, I'm either allergic or sensitive to that. But you pointed out why. Because in Ayurveda, I know that I need more fire, more Agni in my belly, more heat. And you just said coconut oil is cooling, and the light went on. No wonder.
Dim it, it's blinding me.
All right, so let's talk about some dangerous oils and how we damage fatty acids. Now, at the beginning, you talked about omega-3 oils being the most, I don't know if the word was fragile or sensitive, but our best oils are very sensitive, and we're not talking about to mood or somebody being nice to them, although maybe that makes a difference. We're talking about them changing and becoming something that's a carcinogen for our body. What's going on, and how do we damage fatty acids?
Yeah, when I say sensitive, they're sensitive to damage by light, by oxygen, and by heat. And they need to be protected if you want to make them with health in mind. That's what we created, because I understood that, and you have to make very tight systems because light is very small and oxygen is very small, so the system has to be very tight. But talking about the oils, first of all, most oils are not bad for you. It's the processing that we do to them that changes them, that makes them bad for you. So you start with a seed and a nut or a bean, and every whole food has oil in it. Fruits and green plants, maybe 0.1%. So they're quite low in fat, but they still have some, and the fat they have is good. Then you get the grains, they're 2 to 4%. Then you get the beans, they're 4%, most of them, except soybean is 18% fat. And then you get your seeds and nuts, and they're anywhere from 20 to 65% fat. And it's always different fats. You can get omega-3, omega-6, then there's monounsaturated that we call omega-9, and then there's saturated, and those are the hard fats. So So when you squeeze an oil out of a seed like that,
Yep.
it'll be a fresh oil before light, oxygen, and heat damage it.
Okay.
But what we do in industry is we put them through huge presses that run at really high temperatures. Their temperature so high from the friction they create by rotation that the seed cake comes out and it's smoking. So you're literally burning the seed from the friction of the presses. And the oil dribbles out, and it's hot oil.
Yeah.
And when it's hot, it reacts faster, and it's not protected from light or from oxygen. And this hot oil runs down these troughs and then gets put in tanks. And it's really sloppy operation. And because it's a sloppy operation, the oil reacts with light, with oxygen, and through heat, and the molecules change. And then the oil goes rancid from oxygen reaction. Then it tastes bad. Then that has to be, because they made a mess at the front end, they now have to use a chemical feast to clean it up at the back end. So they use Drano or sodium hydroxide, very corrosive base, then phosphoric acid.
You're talking corrosive. Quite literally. We're talking bleach here is put on we're going to be eating.
We're not on the bleach yet.
Okay.
So we're pre-bleach here. So the second is window washing acid, very corrosive acid, phosphoric acid.
So first I got to stop you here. So if I got this right, I've got Drano, then I've got window cleaning.
Yeah, acid. Yeah,
acid, and now we're from here.
Now they put them through bleaching clays because the color molecules in the oil attract light, and the light then damages the oil. So they want to take them out. So they bleach them, but the bleaching makes the oil rancid, and now it smells bad. And now the oil has to be heated to frying temperature in order to blow off the rancid molecules. It's called deodorization, or because the oil stink, I call it destinkerization, right? And now you have a colorless, odorless, tasteless oil. They line the shelves in all the stores, and that oil has been treated with Drano, window washing acid, bleached, and fried before it went in the bottle. This is before you buy it. And in that process, about 1% of the molecules, up to 1% of the molecules, get damaged. And in a tablespoon of an oil like that, you will have 60 quintillion damaged molecules, which is more than 1 million damaged molecules for every one of your body's 60 trillion cells. Now, they change gene expression. You only need probably 100, maybe 1,000 molecules.
And you're talking 60 quintillion in a teaspoon.
Tablespoon.
Tablespoon, excuse me.
Tablespoon, yeah. Yeah, and most people, you eat 2 to 4 a day. Plus, we also throw that oil in the frying pan and damage it even more by the simultaneous effect of light, of oxygen, and of heat on these sensitive oils. And that's a mess. And then we feed them into they're natural molecules. They have now been changed to something that never existed in nature, that was never in our food supply, that life never made a breakdown program for. So they end up in our body, and they occupy space that should belong to a natural molecule. So the natural molecule can't do its job, and this damaged molecules can't do the job, and that's why they're toxic. So they interfere with the chemical processes of life. and the body has a hard time getting rid of them because they never existed in nature, because no way to get rid of them ever had to be invented until until 1900, when we started making oils like that.
It seems crazy to me that nobody has said, what in the world, and found a way that these are not in our food system. There's one, in fact, we go back to industrial processing. There's one food in theory they took out when they finally figured out it's bad, but they've actually left a bunch of them in. What can you tell us about trans fats?
Oh, yeah. So trans fats were a way, the hard fats like coconut are stable. The omega-3s are very unstable. So they need a lot of care. So you don't want to take the care. Then the best thing to do is, if you could only take these liquid oils, they're liquid because they're sensitive. If you could take these liquid oils and make them solid, then you wouldn't have to care about taking care of them, right? So what they do is they bubble hydrogen through liquid oils using a nickel catalyst, or sometimes other catalysts as well. And what you do is you turn the liquid oil into a hard fat. But the first thing that happens is the liquid oils, they have double bonds in them. And when you heat them up, then the molecule twists and you change a natural oil molecule into a trans fat molecule. And that molecule is harder because of the shape has changed, is harder. So that's how you make a plastic fat that is spreadable out of liquid oils. And the trans fats, Walter Willett blew the whistle on them in the 90s. Basically, they increase diabetes, they double risk of heart attack, they interfere with reproduction in both male and female animals. And has a long list of other problems they cause. And they've been demonized. Now they started being used in 1911.
These are things like margarine.
Procter, for margarine and shortenings. And Procter & Gamble was the biggest proponent of them in North America. And they were the result of processing in order to get a non-health related benefit, hard fat that keeps well. And then they started saying, oh, margarine is better than butter. You know what? I trust the cow more than the factory. Yeah. So, but cow's butter doesn't have much omega-3 and omega-6 in it, because a cow has in its stomach bacteria that also hydrogenate the oil, and they also make some trans fatty acids in butter. But the ones in butter are they're not as nasty as the ones in the margarines. But now they have to be put on the labels. And, the trans fatty acids have been, I think our intake of them is now relatively low. And we've found other ways to make margarines. But they're still using those damaged oils, and then they just put in some saturated fats to get it done.
And you mentioned that there's a loophole so that you could put on the label no trans fats or even zero trans fatty acids, when there actually is a not insignificant amount still in there.
Right. If there's less than 0.5% trans fatty acids, you can put on the label zero trans fatty acids. Yeah, you've obviously paid attention to the book. Your body needs an oil change. Yeah, it's really, So that's the second one. The third one is the fried fats. Yeah. And frying is in my opinion, the dumbest thing we've ever invented to do to our food. Because when you fry foods, you burn them. And the research is very clear. If you burn carbs with or without fat, you burn protein with or without fat, or you burn fats and oils, all three of them, independent of each other, increase cancer. And when they increase cancer, they also increase inflammation, because you're changing molecules from natural to unnatural. And again, they get stuck in your body and they interfere with your body's healthy functions. Go and get the frying pan, haul it out of its hiding place, turn it upside down, hit yourself on it really hard with it so it's associated with pain, and then throw that stupid thing out, because it will cause you lots of pain. Because we eat, you talk about piling up damaged molecules. Mm-hmm. Most people use 2 to 4 tablespoons of oil a day. If they're damaged, they're getting a lot of damaged molecule. If they fry them, they're even more damaged. And then you won't kill yourself in a day when you do that. Not in a week either, not in a month either. But if you're doing it 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and then you get cancer, and then you say, I don't know why I got cancer. I always ate good. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Because eating good would mean you eat foods the way nature makes them. And that, for most creatures, is fresh, whole, raw, and organic. And in season and local. That would be the way it was in nature. Then you can look at what you're doing, and you can look at, okay, how far away from that am I? And begin to take steps back in that direction.
And so you're not saying we can't cook our foods, but if you are going to flip over and use the frying pan on a lower heat with water instead of oil.
Yeah, except if you're going to use a frying pan, we're so habituated to using oil that you're probably going to use oil in the frying pan. So I would rather say, if you're going to do cooking, use water, yes.
Yeah.
But throw out the frying pan and do it in a pot. Habits are hard to break. So throw out the frying pan, that breaks the habit.
We just bought a newfangled device, and I'm not sure what to make of it. Well, I know based on your book, but I've got to put it out there, an air fryer.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Okay, so the question I would have to ask is, how hot does the temperature get in the air fryer? Mm-hmm. If the food is burnt, right?
No, not because the food is burnt. You can set the temperature. You could set it 350, 400, 450. Yeah. You can keep it below a burn.
So if at 350, 400, 450, you're burning the food. You're burning the surface of the food because it dries out and then it burns. If you burn it, you make it toxic. Burnt food is toxic, right? If you cook in water, you can't burn the food because wet food can't burn. So like if a steak, you fry a steak, right, in a frying pan, the inside of the steak is actually steamed. Only the outside dries out because the water is driven off at 212 degrees. And then the outside dries out and then overheats to the temperature of whatever you got it in. In your case, the air fryer would be 350. That's a bit above 212, and 400 is getting close to the higher end of frying temperature.
So what temperature, not that we're having a long air fryer discussion, what temperature, if you were to use an air fryer?
Have you had it short time enough that you can take it back?
A week.
Take it back. So the temperature of boiling water is 212.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and the food will be wet, and that's the key. When the food dries out, it becomes subject to burning. Gotcha. When it's wet, you can't burn wet food. You can't burn a fire in water.
What's a triple X rated fatty acid?
Triple X rated, those are the fried fats. Yeah, I call them triple X rated because I have 5 stars, the essential fatty acids, and then their derivatives are 3 star, and then the non-essential fatty acids are 1 star because you can take them or leave them, and the ones you want to avoid is the processed ones, the trans fats, the burnt fats, the cooking oils, the 1% damaged molecules in the cooking oils. Those are the X-rated.
Very
triple
good.
X-rated fats.
We're going to get to olive oil in a second. Before we do that, what's wrong with fish oil today?
Oh, fish oil is even, I said omega-3 from plants is 5 times more sensitive than omega-6. The fish oil omega-3s are 5 times more sensitive than the plant omega-3. So they are super, super, super sensitive to damage. And they treat them just like they do the cooking oils. Very similar to the cooking oils. Little bit different, but there's so much. I mean, if you'd have an omega-6 oil that is 1% damaged by the way they're made, if you treated a fish oil like that, it would be 25 times more damaged. So 1%, you'd be 25% damaged. But probably it's lower, more like 5%. And then you concentrate the fish oils, and the damaged oils concentrate along with you concentrating the omega-3s. They are, plus they have PCBs, dioxins, pesticides, and all kinds of stuff in them. And I've never recommended them simply because they're so damaged by the processing. And so and your body can make the fish oils. It has all the genes you need to make the fish oils, provided you get enough of the plant-based omega-3s in your diet. And when we say to people about 20 grams, 2 to 4 tablespoons. Okay. So 2 to 4 tablespoons is 28, 14, like maybe 12 to 24 grams of omega-3s. And then the body burns some of them for energy and converts some of them into all of these other derivatives. And you don't need fish oil when you do that. Also, you got to make sure that your diet is clean, because if you have too many other fats, they can interfere with the conversion. And if you don't have enough B6 and magnesium and vitamin C and vitamin B3, those are required for conversion. So they're not a magic bullet. Your body can make them, but fundamentally, I'm sneaking you into fixing your entire diet and not just using one magic bullet product to try and fix everything. You want to be really healthy, you got to do everything right.
So we're going to dive into a few more dangerous oils, and then we're going to go to the good side of things. But since we're talking about fish oil, and earlier you had called fish the dirtiest meat, what about krill oil? And it was interesting because in your book you said sustainable, and I'm thinking, aren't we stealing it from the whales?
Yes, we are. But the way it was done is with forethought. When the fish oil industry was invented, nobody paid any attention to sustainability. Yeah. So they went overfished, and then they moved overfished. They've gone all the way around the world. The fish they catch are on average a third the size of what they used to be 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. They say we're fishing babies now. There are fewer species that are edible. The way of harvesting is more effective, and they've figured out that by 2048 there will be no edible fish in the ocean. Yeah. Okay, and they still haven't set any limits, even knowing that. With krill oil, before they put the first net in the water, they actually figured out how much krill is there, how much can we safely harvest without decimating the supply, and they figured on 1.3% per year. And so that whole thing is sustainable. Krill is really low on the food chain, and the lower you go on the food chain, the less toxicity you get. The higher you go on the food chain, the more toxicity you get. So it's better to eat the krill oil and the way krill oil is made is completely different. They actually dissolve it out. They use alcohol to dissolve it out of and it's in a different form that is better absorbed and better conserved in the body. And it has its own antioxidant. It's a very powerful antioxidant that's useful to protect those oils. So if you're going to use a supplement, then krill oil is what I would recommend. And you need less. But if you're plant-based, then that's out for you as well. But when you're plant-based, your body actually improves its ability to convert the essential fatty acids into all the derivatives. And there are herbs like turmeric. Turmeric improves the conversion of the essential fatty acids into the derivatives that the body needs. So if you're plant-based, you don't need krill oil.
Woohoo! I'm saving you, little shrimp. I'm saving you. So let's go from there. Let's talk with the harm with one that we think is benign. In fact, if you go to some major grocers who have food buffets or food bars that are supposed to be healthy, they're cooking with this left, right, and center. What's the harm with olive oil?
Well, olive oil is interesting in two ways. The first one is if it's extra virgin olive oil, then it has not been treated with Drano window washing acid, bleached and fried.
Amen.
Because it's made different. It's made from the flesh of the olive, and it's actually dissolved out and floated off on water. And it hasn't been processing damaged. But you can get olive oils that are processing damaged. So you have to stick to extra virgin olive oil. The way you know, and then the second thing is, you don't know what you're getting because olive oils grow really slowly, and the demand for olive oil has grown much quicker than the trees grow. So people have been cheating and putting canola oil and different other oils in it. And in Spain at one point, somebody put mineral oils in it, and about 2,000 people died. And there was another 20 or 30 or 40,000, I can't remember the exact number, that got permanent chronic pain in their joints and in their body from this mineral oil, which doesn't belong in a human body, being absorbed and then sitting around and causing problems. So canola oil is sometimes used, and soybean oil is used to add it to the olive oil. So the way I would measure it is put it in your fridge. If it goes hard, it's olive oil. If it doesn't go hard, or at least produce flecks of hardened flecks in the oil, then that oil has been doctored. That's not a perfect way to do it, but it's about as good as you can get. So, or you have to know where you're getting the oil from. and you have to be able to trace it back to origin. But olive oil has a downside too. It doesn't have any omega-3s in it, and it only has 10% omega-6. 80% of the oil is omega-9, and your body can make omega-9 out of sugar and starch. So you don't need omega-9. Only omega-3 and omega-6 are essential.
And the concept that it has about burning temperature and it being safe, it actually, burn temperature is irrelevant, you're saying, when it comes to frying, because all oils, when fry, are going to be bad for you. Olive oil maybe even more so.
Yeah, honestly, that's total BS. Because when you heat oils in a frying pan, you're doing damage to the food and the oil. And if health is what you want, you ought not to be doing that, right? If you don't care about health, you can do whatever you want. But if health is your goal, don't fry with olive oil either. By the way, the traditional use of olive oil in the Mediterranean countries where it originated, they cooked their vegetables in water. They dumped off the water, then they added the oil. They didn't use olive oil for frying way back until about 100 years ago, 150 years ago.
Coming from Ayurveda, it's been very popular to use ghee, which has, I guess, a high, quote, smoke point instead of vegetable oils. What do you think of that?
I think ghee is not as good as butter because it is less nutritious, but it was a way of making an oil that keeps. Because when you take out the nutrients, then bugs won't eat it. And in India, they didn't have refrigeration. The best they had is they dug a hole in the ground like 6 feet deep. They put their oil in the hole because it's a little cooler down there than it is at the surface. So ghee was a way, and it's oil. So if they were giving medications like herbs and things, then some of those are oil soluble and are better absorbed in the presence of fat. But from a health perspective, not a great deal.
And we're going to double back around that fats that heal in just about 2 minutes. Before we do that, a couple more thoughts. And this is actually a circle within a circle. You were playing with pesticides earlier in your life, or the karma consequences, obviously, that came about real quickly and is helping you to help others. Pesticides and non-organic versus getting organic oils.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can tell you a story. Yeah. When I found out that 1% damage is done to these oils by the processing with drain or window washing as a bleach and fried, I called the Oil Chemist Society. They're the umbrella organization for the oil manufacturers. And I said, I want to talk to a scientist. So they said, okay, we'll give you a scientist. So he got on the phone and I said, listen, when you know that the way you process oils damages them, why do you do it? He said, well, one of the reasons we do it is we can blow off half of the pesticides in the oil with these processes. And I had been poisoned by pesticides, and I was thinking, so I was a little sensitive to that. Yeah. I didn't even know that they were doing that. And so I said to him, well, why don't you start with organically grown seeds? Because then you don't have the problem in the first place. And then maybe you can process them without doing damage to them. So he just, all of a sudden, there was like total silence on the phone. And so I waited, and it was a long time. Then when he got back, he was really mad. He says, I don't know what your problem is. The oil is still 99% good, and it's only 1% damaged. And if you got 99% on an exam, you'd be damn happy, wouldn't you? And I used to get 100% on some of my exams, so I wasn't as impressed with 99 as he was. But then I thought, well, maybe I'm overreacting. And that's when I did the math that I told you, that in a tablespoon, that's 1% damaged of oil, that's 1% damage, you get 60 quintillion damaged molecules, which is more than 1 million damaged molecules for every cell in your body. And at that point, I said, no, I'm not overreacting. This is serious, because you only need 1,000 molecules to change gene expression, and you're getting 1,000 times that much. And is that going to make a difference to your health? Yes, it is. And is it going to be a good difference? No, it's not. It's going to be a mess. And so that made me even more confident, even though when he said that, it's like, well, maybe I am overreacting. It's only 1%. But only 1% in 50 years is a lot of damaged molecules.
So one last oil, I could keep going and going and going. So everybody, you're going to need to get the book. But one more oil that we have in our cabinet here, that's a relatively new oil, avocado oil.
It has about 5% omega-3. It's mostly omega-9, so it's mostly monounsaturated, not essential. And it has, I think, probably about 12 to 15% omega-6. So eat the avocados. That's the short answer. Eat the avocados. I love avocados. I don't use the oil. And part of it is because the avocado oil is made like other oils. It's not unrefined. If it's unrefined and organic, it might be okay. But oil usually goes with foods. So I think I think it's the wisest way to do it anyway is always to get as much as you can from the whole foods that you eat. And then if you need, add something on top of that. But don't, it seems like convenient, and avocados have a place of love in your heart. I get that in mine too, right? But eat the avocados.
What's interesting is, thank you, the avocado oil, and usually it's organic, although I've heard there's not much pesticide. So I wasn't thinking about all the processing methods. I've learned a lot here today. Yeah. But it's stored in a tin container. And now I'm learning about, from your book, from tin, from plastic, even from clear glass. There are some there are ways to turn some safe oil not so safe quickly with how we store it, aren't there?
Yeah, we put them in brown glass bottles in a box in the fridge, in the supplement section in the health food store, called Udos oil. That's the packaging. The box cuts the light out completely. The glass is inert. If you put oil in plastic leaches into the oil more than it leaches into water. And there's now some pretty good research that shows if you put a plastic wrap on food to keep it, the plastic will drift into the food proportional to the amount of fat or oil in the food.
So the higher fat that you have, the more plastic is going to leach into it.
Correct.
Wow.
And so it's best to put oils in glass. And you want to keep them, if they've got omega-3s and 6s in them, I keep my oils refrigerated. If you want to keep them a long time, like I buy it by the case, so I get a case discount. The oils are not cheap, but you get a case discount. You stick it in the freezer and freeze it solid. The glass bottles will not break because oil shrinks when it freezes, unlike water.
Interesting.
Right? So I say this because people ask all the time, well, isn't a bottle going to break? No, oil shrinks when it freezes. Water expands when it freezes. So, and then you keep it in the freezer, then you get a long shelf life. If the molecules don't move, you don't get chemical reactions. So the oil won't deteriorate. And then you take it out, and the bottle you're using, keep it in the fridge. And then once you open it, air gets in. So then use the bottle up within 8 weeks is what we recommend.
Excellent. And you don't want us using tin containers because those actually have a lining inside of it, whether we go BPA, BPB, or God knows what, that is also leaching right into the oil.
Yeah, that's true. And then there's another issue is that I've seen bottles, like tin bottles used in Europe with plastic nubs on it for pouring it. And where the metal is cut, the metal actually reacts with the oil and catalyzes breakdown. And then you get this gooey gel on it because the oil molecules have been cross-linked.
Wow.
So
that does not sound good for us.
No, and in fact, linseed oil, which is flaxseed oil, the old version, the damaged version, they use that to paint furniture because it cross-links when oxygen and light get to it, and then it protects your furniture. But so we're using the same oil, but we're taking the care to keep it fresh. And when it's fresh, it has very powerful health potential for your body.
On that note, then, what are some more fats that heal?
The only thing you need in the universe of fats, omega-3 and omega-6.
Yeah.
The best way to get the fats is in whole foods. And if you need more, we measure how much you need by your skin. If your skin gets dry, then you need more oil because skin gets it last and loses it first. And that's because that's nature's priority for the heart. Because if your heart dried out because your skin was still moist, but your heart dried out first, then that would kill you. But you can live with dry skin. So skin gets it last, loses it first. If you get enough, if you optimize, you get soft, smooth, velvety skin. And I used to test people's hands and tell them how much oil they needed just from knowing that. So omega-3 and 6 have to be in the right balance, because if you get only one in your skin actually loses that smoothness.
Gotcha.
So you won't get it if you only have omega-3s. We used to give people omega-6s. Their skin got nice. Then it got worse because they started taking flax oil by itself. Mm-hmm. And then they became omega-6 deficient. And then their skin fell apart again. So those are the only two things that you need from fats. Everything else is optional. Best way to get it, seeds, nuts, and other whole foods. And if you want to add, if you want more, because under certain circumstances, like if you're running or you're really pushing your body, or maybe you're sick, or maybe you're pregnant and maybe you need more, then you add oil made with health in mind on top of that. And honestly, of all the oils out there, there's only one that I recommend. It's the best one because I made it. And if I could make it better, I would make it better. And it's called Udo's oil.
I've got to ask you a question about Udo's oil. And after reading your book, I know that you're going to give me an answer that I'm confident with. So confession, Udo. Last year we got pregnant. We had 2 miscarriages last year. We'll be trying again this year. And as soon as we got pregnant, we went out and got Udo's oil. And then I banned my wife from using it. So please clarify me on the error of my way. It has an ingredient in it that I have learned to me is bad. And you're going to tell me why I'm wrong on this. And I'm looking forward to it. Which is soy lecithin. And I said, I don't want to mess up her gut and the baby's gut. And instead, I ended up putting like flax seeds into the smoothies and other seeds, sunflower seeds into the smoothies, and wouldn't let her take the oil. Where did I go astray here?
Soy lecithin is I don't know where you got the idea that soy lecithin is a bad thing. Soy lecithin had a super good reputation because it was one of the few sources of omega-3s before we started making flaxseed oil. And so it had health benefits from that. If you're taking flax oil, you probably won't notice it. But all it is membrane oil. And it has omega-3 and omega-6 in it. And we get it from non-GMO soybeans. Yeah. We actually have to bring it in from Europe because we can't get non-GMO soybean lecithin in North America. and soy lecithin has a long history of health use and good benefits. But this was also before GMOs. So you want your lecithin to be non-GMO. For whatever the changes are that GMOs cause, we don't know really what all we're doing. We're just experimenting on the population. And that's a bad habit human beings have. They start doing the work before they actually think about the consequences. It's called freedom without responsibility.
Ask first, find out what the challenges are with it later. Or don't ask first. Make it first, sell it first, test it first, and then if there are problems.
Yeah, and then if there are problems, lie about it and say it's not because of that. So I think your view on lecithin, I don't know where it comes from, but probably
as an emulsifier. From what I've read, is soy lecithin as an emulsifier, specifically when looking at soy milk, almond milk, all of these things, and you'd read about soy lecithin and hearing that it might hurt your microbiome. Oh no, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. In fact, omega-3s improve your microbiome. And they are emulsifiers. And part of the reason why they're so useful is they emulsify oils and enable you to digest them better. All right. Yeah. We're going to try it again. And I'm going to try it because I want to do this health challenge, this runner challenge with myself and see if we can turn me back into a racehorse. So Any last words of wisdom before we do a really short meditation? And if you're short on time, I understand. We've been going over, this has just been a really important topic for people today.
You can't do it just with oils. Oils play an important role in the physical part of health. But if you can get present in your own life, so this is a setup for a little meditation here. If you can get fully present in your own life and discover how magnificent it is to be a human being, you will fall in love, as you should, with life, and you will become unbelievably radiant and shining and a light in the world for other people. But that would include yourself. So you can't just do it for other people and sacrifice yourself. But you are a light. Discover more of shining it.
Woohoo!
Okay.
I love it, Udo. So then would you mind leading us in a little meditation? And if you're driving down the road, let's do this later when you're parked.
People ask me, well, how do you get present in your own life? And for me, I say, okay, the first thing I would say, you got to sit down. You got to make the time to sit down and get still. Close your eyes, get still, like no clearing your throat and no snorting, and see how still can you get, and then see how deeply still you can get, and then see how long you can stay in that stillness. And in that stillness, you might discover a heartache. If you do, feel it. Embrace it, accept it, because that is the starting point for your journey to the beauty of your own being. And if you can sit with that, because most people don't like it, so they try to distract themselves from it. If you sit with that and feel it, right behind that is your wholeness, which is what we're all driven to look for. Right behind it, behind your heartache, is your love. Behind your heartache is your peace. Within you is everything that you're looking for on the outside. Once you get that in place, I call that the homework. Once you do your homework, everything in your life begins to fall into place. So that's it.
So I want to find out where people can go. Actually, we can send people to our website. We're going to have a place people can go who can find the oil there on the website. And if I understand this right, they'll get free access to the book, Your Body Needs an Oil Change, plus bonus videos, which is not something we normally do. But I am excited after reading this book to get people drinking, bathing, swimming in oil.
Swimming in oil, yeah. As long as you don't drown in it. But yeah, UdoErasmus.com. And then there's some other stuff on it. We have some courses on the website, and we're just building it. It's really fun. And we have a book there that's called The Book on Total Sexy Health, the 8 Key Parts Designed by Nature. That's my big project of turning health and human nature into teachable fields. Because all the problems on the planet come from us being ignorant of our own nature. Because if we knew the magnificence of our own nature, we wouldn't be trying to find everything we're looking for outside, because we got all of it on the inside already. So we have to go inward to fulfill our lives. And we're going to destroy the planet if we keep going out. Because it's a fool's errand, because you go out to try and you go out looking for what you need to look for on the inside. It's like, you have money in your left pocket and you're looking in your right pocket for it. You're not going to find it. That's what we're doing, but we're destroying the planet and each other and ourselves in the process of doing that. And this is an overview of everything that affects health, based on nature and human nature. And it's human nature, basically, nature and human nature. So health, nature, and human nature. It's an overview is an inspired piece of work. I was in a it's almost like a download. It's not a download, but it's an heart upload. How's that?
This has been fantastic, Udo. I can't thank you enough.
Perfect. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's fun. So I want to hear your results from using the oil to do your running.
I will let you know. I will throw out. Oh, go ahead.
I think you'll be amazed.
I am 49 years young, and I do know that I have creaky joints and things like that, which I have assumed was spending too much hours on the chair. I run like crazy, but I assumed it was the chair is very detrimental, something that we're working on. But I know that I have an almost oil-free diet. I'm predominantly vegan. My wife tries to sneak some ghee into me, which I fight her left, right, and center. Yes, tooth and nail. That's what I was going for. But it does make sense that I should have some oil in my diet. And I'm not afraid of oil. I'm not afraid of fats at any stretch. So let's play with this and see what happens.
Okay. Yeah.
So thank you. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get your body needs an oil change, and begin eating fats that heal instead of fats that kill today, and shine bright. Woohoo!
All right. Yay.
Thank you so much, Udo. This has been phenomenal.
You are phenomenal. It takes one to know one.
Oh, thank you. I just had the most beautiful interview with Udo Erasmus on your body needs an oil change. To check out more healthful interviews, click here, subscribe below, and be sure to click on the bell icon to be notified of upcoming shows. Love you guys.